Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer their respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Shrinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Radyantastoya Bhadrani Vidunoti Saritatam. Sri Krishna is the Paramatma, the supersoul in the heart of each living entity, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses the heart of material desire. The devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. And finally, Nashta Prayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtaki. By regular hearing of the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, almost all that is troublesome to the heart is completely destroyed. In love of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. So this is the great medicine to a problem that we're all having. We're all suffering and having troubles. And we were talking about it yesterday. It's due to our ignorance, actually. It's not due to, oh my God, this issue, or I'm being victimized by the material world. No, it's due to our ignorance that the victimization is actually taking effect on the consciousness. If one shifts the consciousness from trying to fulfill all of one's desires in the world to surrender unto the Supreme Lord, part of the process of surrender is to accept the Lord's will. When something happens around us that we can't control, we accept, all right, that must be the Lord's will. A small example, me and my wife entered a sweepstakes to win a tiny home because actually we find it would be very helpful towards one of the things we were hoping to do, especially now that a child is coming and things like this. But of course, the probabilities are so low. What are the chances that we would win? But we checked anyway. But we prayed before they announced it that only if this could be favorable to your service, please, you could arrange this. So lo and behold, the Lord must not have found it favorable to the service because He didn't bestow it. But actually, we were trusting. Okay, no problem. And interestingly enough, I messaged Keshava Gopal last night, and he was trying to part with a tiny house anyway. So we worked out an arrangement. He's going to send a tiny house up. Yes, it's not a free tiny house, but still, it's the arrangement is still there, and it might be a better opportunity to give some donation towards a devotee. It's probably a much better opportunity than just to get it for free from like this. And it was actually made by devotees in Alachua, Florida. It's like a devotee-run business. They create tiny homes and things. So it feels good, Okay, that's a good thing. So anyhow, that's the Lord's plan. We try not to get so enwrapped and entangled in fulfilling our desires, and we become very adaptable to, all right, the Lord's plan is this, no problem. So Bhishma, right when we ended last time, he's ready to die. And now what's he doing? He's focusing his consciousness completely on Krishna. So you're seeing here, this is the scene he's remembering. Krishna with the wheel, ready to break his vow, because Bhishma wanted him to break his vow, because he made Bhishma break his vow. And also teaching very nice lessons, as Piyush was elaborating yesterday, on the meaning of vows. And ultimately it's worth it to break a vow to uphold Dharma, especially the highest Dharma, which is one's duties to the Lord. many of us, there's all kinds of things that, are dharmas, you could say. Everyone has a duty to their parents, everyone has a duty to their forefathers, even the demigods and so many things. But if any of those things get in the way of duty to the Lord, the higher dharma would be to abandon that dharma, like Krishna concludes Bhagavad Gita with, and surrender unto me. So, many times the devotees, and even this happened a little bit with me, my parents and my wife's parents were not so eager for us to practice bhakti yoga or become monks or missionaries in life. So sometimes they would create some obstacle for us, just out of fear and affection for us. But we've had to challenge them every step of the way, even though no one wants to challenge their parents, no one wants to disappoint their relatives and their loved ones and things like this. But if they step against the Lord, they must be challenged. So it's just inevitable, lest you also step against the Lord in compliance. So this is not our position. So we're trying to figure out the highest dharma, and Bhishma is exemplifying this and learned this lesson very viscerally from Krishna. And now he's ready to do exactly what he needs to do, fully and wholly and solely focusing on the Lord at the time of death. This is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita in the 8th chapter. The ultimate recommendation is at death we should fix our consciousness onto the Supreme Personality, the Supreme Truth, and Krishna reveals he is that Supreme Truth. So Bhishma is doing just that. So the last verse, why don't we read it? The English. Fulfilling my desire and sacrificing his own promise, he got down from the chariot, took up its wheel, and ran towards me hurriedly, just as a lion goes to kill an elephant. He even dropped his outer garment on the way. That's right here. That's what's happening in this photo. Anyone online needs to see the photo. Here it is, right next to me. So, let's continue. Text 38. Shita vishika hatu vishina damsha Kshata japari pluta atatayino me Prasabamapi sasara madvadartham Sabhavatu me bhagavan gatir mukunda Shita, sharp, Vishika, arrows, Hata, wounded by, Vishirna damsha, scattered shield, Kshataja, by wounds, Paripluta, smeared with blood, Atatayina, the great aggressor, Me, my, Prasabham, in an angry mood, Abhi Sasara, began to move on, Matvada Artham, for the purpose of killing me. Saha, he, Bhavatu, may become, me, my, Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. Gati, destination. Mukunda, who awards salvation. May he, Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who awards salvation. He calls him Mukunda, that's what Mukunda means. Be my ultimate destination. On the battlefield he charged me as if angry because of the wounds dealt by my sharp arrows. His shield was scattered and his body was smeared with blood due to the wounds. And he's recounting his battling pastimes with Krishna. This is also... and he's a servant of Krishna, but due to his vow, he was on the other side of the war. And as Piyush was saying yesterday, he didn't say anything to the disgrace of another great devotee, which was Draupadi, the Pandava, Arjuna's wife and the Pandava's wife. And so let's hear from Prabhupada, though. The dealings of Lord Krishna and Bhishma Dev on the battlefield of Kurukshetra are interesting, because the activities of Lord Sri Krishna appeared to be partial to Arjuna and at enmity with Bhishma Dev. But factually, all this was especially meant to show special favor to Bhishma Dev, a great devotee of the Lord. The astounding feature of such dealings is that a devotee can please the Lord by playing the part of an enemy. The Lord, being absolute, can accept service from his pure devotee, even in the garb of an enemy. The Supreme Lord cannot have an enemy, nor can a so-called enemy harm him, because he is Ajita, or unconquerable. But still he takes pleasure when his pure devotee beats him like an enemy, or rebukes him from a superior position, although no one can be superior to the Lord. You see this in Vrindavan all the time. Krishna and the cowherd boys, they go out to play and then they compete with each other. And then they beat each other and things like this. And Krishna sees them as the enemy, but he gets great joy when oftentimes, and especially in Vrindavan, Krishna loses. The cowherd boys, how could you overthrow God? But they do. Why? It's their affection and love for him that conquers. This is what conquers God. So similarly, actually, this is an example of Bhishma conquering Krishna. Bhishma had so much affection and a desire to fight with the Lord, the Lord tricked him and made him break his vow. So now I'm going to make him break his vow. So he fought so valiantly that the Lord actually was forced to break his vow, and actually you could say was defeated. But this is actually the glory of how the Lord interacts with the devotee. The devotee gets all of their spiritual desires fulfilled. So even so, where Krishna will break his own vow, which is very, very nice. So you can actually please the Lord in playing the part of an enemy. This actually happens many times where great devotees, they'll like step against the Lord, but it's a part of the Leela. Like for instance, Advaita Acharya, he is a very interesting personality. That must be Craig. Welcome. So Advaita Acharya, actually, almost every time we go to India, we leave on Advaita Saptami, which is like the appearance day of Advaita Acharya. And actually, again this year, we didn't even plan it, but lo and behold, we're going on Advaita Acharya. So his actually appearance day is only in a few days. But Advaita Acharya, he was senior to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was like the leader of the devotees in Navadvip. He was, he taught Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's elder brother, and he saw Chaitanya Mahaprabhu since he was a baby. So naturally, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, showing etiquette to Advaita Acharya, he was very like, you're a senior. So Advaita Acharya did not like this at all. He says, no, I'm your servant, And so he would go back and forth, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would never respect his desire to see him as a servant. So what Advaita Acharya said, he hated it. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would always pay him respects and bow before him and want to touch his feet. And he was so ashamed and he hated it so much because he just wanted to serve the Lord. And here he sees the Supreme Lord in his beautiful complexion and form. And this Lord is treating him like a senior. So Advaita Acharya hated it so much, he's like, I know what I'll do. Do you know this story, Parth? This is a wonderful story. So Advaita Acharya says, I know what I'll do. I will preach Mayavad philosophy. Mayavad philosophy is oneness. It's an incomplete philosophy because with oneness, there is a oneness to everything. Everything's part of the supreme truth. But the Mayavad philosophy is that everyone and everything is one, and all personality and all variegation is just an illusion, and we're all just meant to merge back to one. They can't tell you how Maya had overcome the oneness in the first place. They can't tell you what's the point of existence then. To them, it's all illusion. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu hates this. He hates this philosophy. He says there's nothing more denigrating to one's spiritual life than to choose this easy cop-out. Everything is one, all things are one. And it's obvious not all things are one. Like, you're going to eat some nice oatmeal that Parth offered to the Lord before. But obviously you wouldn't go into the bathroom looking for your breakfast, because not all things are one. There's a refinement on how to utilize everything. So similarly, variegation is very good. So Advaita Acharya decided, I'm going to preach Mayavad philosophy. Advaita means like this oneness. That's what Advaita means. So he started preaching Mayavad philosophy in his town, and he was so expert, and he was doing it vigorously, like Bhishma fighting. And so now people are starting to follow him, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gets wind of this, and he's so angry. And he says, come on, Nityananda Prabhu, we're going to Advaita. So Advaita lived like Advaita lived in Shantipur. And so it was some ways away from Navadvip. So they had to cross the Ganges and so on to get to Advaita. So finally, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu reached Shantipur, and Advaita Acharya was preaching Mayavad philosophy. And so Advaita Acharya, he sees Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and then he raises his voice. And even more vigorously, he starts preaching this philosophy, which was the antithesis of bhakti, really. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes up to him and he throws him on the ground and starts beating him. Who is here now? Oh, yeah, leaving. So he starts beating him senselessly. And so Advaita Acharya's wife, Sita Thakurani, she's like, oh my God, she's like freaking out. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is exclaiming, I came just for you! Because actually, the pastime of why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came is due to Advaita Acharya's own, one of the reasons is due to Advaita Acharya's austerity he performed on the Ganga. And he actually appeared to Advaita Acharya first and revealed that I'm coming to this world. And so now here's Advaita Acharya taking the garb of an enemy. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is beating him and beating him and beating him. And I came here only for you. And between punches, he's like exclaiming, how could you do this? And then what ended up happening is Advaita Acharya, finally Sita Thakurani is crying, pacified Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then he started feeling so much embarrassed and offering obeisances unto Advaita Acharya. But then, similar to how Bhishma is doing like here, he's just like in ecstasy being an enemy of Krishna as Krishna is ready to break his vow. Advaita Acharya, he hops up and he starts dancing ecstatically, all bloodied and everything. And he says, he treats me as his servant. He's chastising me. And he's like weeping in ecstasy because the Lord chastised me. He fulfilled my desire. So you just see, you never know even as an enemy you could please the Lord. And Advaita Acharya is an example of this. He took the role of an enemy, preaching the very thing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu hates the most, which is this Advaita philosophy. Because there's Chintya Beda Beda Tattva, meaning there's the simultaneous oneness, Advaita, but it's not complete at Advaita. There's also a difference, an infinite variegatedness. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's philosophy is integrating all facets. So anyhow, this is an example, and it's funny. If you read the pastime in Chaitanya Bhagavat, I just crack up laughing. Just like all of if you actually get Advaita Acharya's words and see how they're translated out, it's so funny. Because he's, if someone else got a beating, no one else would be happy, but he's celebrating getting beaten by the Lord. Why? Because he wanted to be the Lord to treat him as a servant, and the Lord refused. So he had to do something that would warrant that. So anyhow, Bhishma also, he had to do something that would warrant the Lord breaking his vow and wanting to kill him. So he fought so much and was ready to kill Arjuna to put the Lord on the ropes and make the Lord finally break his vow. So it's very nice, and this is actually great pleasure to the Lord. This gives great pleasure to the Lord. This isn't like, that's just like weird. It's the Lord gets great pleasure in fulfilling the desires of the devotees. And when we actually become a devotee, what it means to be a devotee, it's not, I chant Hare Krishna, or I live at the ashram, I'm a devotee. No, to be a devotee means that you have pure affection for the Lord. This is what it really means to be a bhakta, one of the Lord's devotees. And so unless you are approaching him without any tinge of your own material desires or any tinge of your own material prowess and knowledge, we're not yet at that platform, and we can't control the Lord. But you see, sometimes you may come across a pure desire, and the Lord fulfills all those desires. I've seen it in my devotional life, when I get out of my own way, and have some humble desires for the Lord and his pleasure, he fulfills every one of those desires. I mean, this house is even one of the aspects of that. And actually, it took way longer, almost a year longer than we desired, because the Lord had to weed out some of my material desires that were coupled with the good desire that, yes, we have a Krishna conscious community here. So as long as it took to weed out those desires, that's how long it took for it to fructify. And then it finally fructified. And, I can say I don't have the same, plans that I had with the house. And now it's just like, nope, this is a Krishna ashram, wholly and solely. Like, that's what this is meant to be. And so the Lord, he, that's how he works. So anyhow, where are we? Even in the garb of an enemy, the Supreme Lord cannot have any enemy, nor can a so-called enemy harm him, because he is Ajita, or unconquerable. But still he takes pleasure when his pure devotee beats him like an enemy, or rebukes him from a superior position, although no one can be superior to the Lord. These are some of the transcendental reciprocatory dealings of the devotee with the Lord. And those who have no information of pure devotional service cannot penetrate into the mystery of such dealings. So unless you know of the teachings of bhakti, the confidential knowledge of bhakti, this is just completely bewildering. What do you mean you could be an enemy of the Lord? No way. Like no other religion, this is possibly understood. But this is a great mystery, actually. Bhishmadev played the part of a valiant warrior, and he purposely pierced the body of the Lord so that to the common eyes it appeared that the Lord was wounded. But factually, all this was to bewilder the non-devotees. The all-spiritual body cannot be wounded, and a devotee cannot become the enemy of the Lord. Had it been so, Bhishmadev would not have desired to have the very same Lord as the ultimate destination of his life. Had Bhishmadev been an enemy of the Lord, Lord Krishna could have annihilated him without even moving. There was no need to come before Bhishmadev with blood and wounds. But he did so because the warrior devotee wanted to see the transcendental beauty of the Lord decorated with wounds created by a pure devotee. This is the way of exchanging transcendental ras, or relations between the Lord and the servitor. By such dealings, both the Lord and the devotee become glorified in their respective positions. The Lord was so angry that Arjuna checked him when he was moving towards Bhishmadev. But in spite of Arjuna's checking, he proceeded towards Bhishmadev as a lover goes to a lover, without caring for hindrances. Apparently, his determination was to kill Bhishmadev, but factually it was to please him as a great devotee of the Lord. The Lord is undoubtedly the deliverer of all conditioned souls. The impersonalists desire salvation from him, and he always awards them according to their aspiration. But here, Bhishmadev aspires to see the Lord in his personal feature. All pure devotees aspire for this. So, this is one of the reasons the Lord is now present at his leaving this world, giving him the ultimate perfection. And this is his meditation, actually, at the end. These transcendental exchanges with the Lord that he got to actually experience. Actually, how much more fortunate than us, Bhishma, Arjuna, they're personally exchanging with the Lord. And here we are, only hearing about it and maybe even caring so little about the exchanges with the Lord and his devotee. But they're personally associating, even as an enemy. Even Duryodhana, to be able to see the Lord, how wonderful, they must be to have that, benediction. I wouldn't necessarily want to be Duryodhana, but they're much more fortunate than us. They could see Krishna face to face. So anyhow, let's read the next verse, text 39. Vijaya Ratha Kutumba Tatotre Drita Hayarashmini Tachri Ekshaniye Bhagavati Ratirastu Me Mumushur Yami Haniriksha Hatagata Svarupam Vijaya, Arjuna, Ratha, chariot, Kutumbe, the object of protection at all risk. Atatotre, with a whip in the right hand. Dritahaya, controlling the horses. Rashmini, ropes. tatriya, beautifully standing, ikshaniye, to look at, Bhagavati, unto the personality of Godhead, rati astu, let my attraction be, me, my, mumorsho, one who is about to die, yam, upon whom, iha in this world, niriksha, by looking, hata, those who died, gata, attained, swarupam, original form. At the moment of death, let my ultimate attraction be to Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. I concentrate my mind upon the chariot driver of Arjuna, who stood with a whip in his right hand and a bridle rope in his left, who was very careful to give protection to Arjuna's chariot by all means. Those who saw him on the battlefield of Kurukshetra attained their original forms after death. Purport. This is quite the purport. Not that long, actually. A pure devotee of the Lord constantly sees the presence of the Lord. Actually, I forgot to do the glorifications of the Gurus. So let's do that quickly. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Cha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Namo Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shanyavadi Paschatya Deshatadihine Jai. It's really a good practice. Actually, when you guys are all giving class, when we leave, I'm going to have the boys give some classes to fill in the programs, and we'll split it up nicely. This is actually going to be your saving grace, getting the blessings of the spiritual masters before you try and speak, and they will help you, because when you go to speak, what will happen is the natural tendency is that we just kind of have some misconceptions and we start speaking. But if we kind of make a pact that I'm only going to speak what I've heard from the spiritual lineage, then we can preserve the knowledge and we don't put our own mental speculation and actually ruin the knowledge altogether. So this is the process, and this is why we chant the Mangalacharana, to be empowered by the direct line of the absolute truth. And then you actually can become an instrument for the absolute truth. So it's very important I do that. And it'll be important, you guys. You don't have to do the whole Mangalacharana unless you really want to, but you can at least do the Nama Om, coming from the auspices and blessings from Srila Prabhupada. So anyhow, a pure devotee of the Lord constantly sees the presence of the Lord within himself because of being transcendently related by loving service. Such a pure devotee cannot forget the Lord for a moment. This is called trance. The mystic yogi tries to concentrate upon the supersoul by controlling the senses from all other engagements, and thus he ultimately attains samadhi. A devotee more easily attains samadhi or trance by constantly remembering the Lord's personal feature, along with his holy name, fame, pastimes, etc. Therefore, the concentration of the mystic yogi and that of the devotee are not on the same level. The concentration of the mystic is mechanical, whereas that of the pure devotee is natural in pure love and spontaneous affection. Bhishma Dev was a pure devotee, and as a military marshal, he constantly remembered the battlefield feature of the Lord as Parthasarathi, the chariot driver of Arjuna. Therefore, the Lord's pastime as Parthasarathi is also eternal. The pastimes of the Lord, beginning from his birth at the prison house of Kamsa up to the Mosala Leela at the end, all move one after another in all the universes, just as the clock hand moves from one point to another. And in such pastimes, his associates like the Pandavas and Bhishma are constant eternal companions. So Bhishma Dev never forgot the beautiful feature of the Lord as Parthasarathi, which even Arjuna could not see. Arjuna was behind the beautiful Parthasarathi, while Bhishma Dev was just in front of the Lord. As far as the military feature of the Lord is concerned, Bhishma Dev observed this with more relish than Arjuna. Because Bhishma stood on the enemy, he got to really see the Lord in his glory on the battlefield. Whereas Arjuna also saw, but he saw from a different lens, a different perspective. So this is actually very nice. Let's continue here. Also the devotee's samadhi is so much greater than the yogi's samadhi, because the yogi's samadhi is a very technical process, and focus the breath, first asana, first yama niyama. I have my rules and regulations and principles I live by. Okay, asana, sit up nice and tall. Pranayama, focus on the breath. Pratyahara, take the senses inward. Dharana, let's concentrate on the absolute truth within the heart. And it's not, and so on. It's a very technical process. And what they find in there is quite wonderful, but it's nothing in comparison to what the devotee experiences by having direct darshan of the Supreme Lord. And then on top of that, colored and tasted based on the relationship that's there. So Bhishma is tasting the Lord in this Yudha Vira Ras, which is Vira is like hero and Yudha is like fighting, the fighting hero Ras, and which is under the Dasya. He's serving the Lord by providing him a good fight. This is only the devotee. Even that's why when Ravan and Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha and Kumbhakarna and Dantavakra and Shishupal, when they wanted to challenge Krishna in all of his different manifestations, they had to come first from the spiritual world, Jai and Vijay. That was the so-called fall. And actually, why? Because only the devotee can do the Lord justice in giving a good fight. What will the pathetic beings of this material world, what kind of fight can they put against the Lord? Only the devotee can give a good fight to the Lord. So the Lord had to arrange a circumstance for them to fight, and so on. So this is very good, talking about the samadhi of the devotee, how it's far greater than even the yogi with the technical process of samadhi. But let's continue. All the soldiers and persons on the battlefield of Kurukshetra attain their original spiritual form, like the Lord after their death, because by the causeless mercy of the Lord, they were able to see him face to face on that occasion. The conditioned souls rotating in the evolutionary cycle from the aquatics up to the form of Brahma are all in the form of Maya, or the form obtained by one's own actions and awarded by material nature. The material forms of the conditioned souls are all foreign dresses, and when the conditioned soul becomes liberated from the clutches of material energy, he attains his original form. So one of the things we're looking for is what's called our Swarup. Rup is form, and Swa means one's own form. In this life, I have form as a white American boy born of some lineage that my parents are, and so you guys have your own forms in this life. But this is not your eternal form. Before you took this life, you didn't look like this. You didn't act like this, and you didn't have this type of family, and so on. But actually, when we attain the material, when we attain the spiritual world, we'll actually attain our one's own form, or that Swarup. So this is ultimately what we're looking for, our eternal situation. Uh, one of the reasons we're looking for like long-lasting happiness or permanent happiness is because we're a permanent being. So naturally, we're looking for eternal things. That's why we get upset when we lose things that we like. Another tire, 3 tires in 1 year. Another tire has gone on my car, and I have to replace another tire this year. And it's just a reminder, when I first got the car, I was, oh, this is so nice, even though it was kind of old when I got it. But it's a reminder every time something goes wrong and degrades or dilapidates, it's a reminder, oh, this is the situation here. Craig is senior in age in this room, and he's probably noticing, wow, this body it's not quite what it was at one point, when it looked like Michael. So this is the nature of this world. And we want to preserve everything. We want to preserve our happiness. But in this world, it doesn't work like that. Why? Because we don't belong to this world. So we want to achieve where we do belong to. And that's what Maya is. Maya gives the forms obtained by one's own actions and awarded by material nature. But Maya means that which is not. It has nothing to do with us, but it's like us, becoming like obsessed with like action figures, or becoming obsessed with an avatar in the video game, or characters in movies and things like that, because this is just kind of illusory happinesses. So, but we are putting so much prominence, we have so much pride in our body and our family lineage and our situation and how our friends know us or how our relatives know us and all these things. But actually, this has nothing to do with us. What really has to do with us, that has to be seen. So let's finish this paragraph and end to today. The material forms of the conditioned souls are all foreign dresses, and when the conditioned soul becomes liberated from the clutches of material energy, he attains his original form. The impersonalist wants to attain the impersonal Brahman effulgence of the Lord, but that is not at all congenial to the living sparks, parts and parcels of the Lord. This is the limitation of impersonalism. It wants to merge with the Lord, but it doesn't account for the Lord has actually made you an individual soul, and that you actually have a purpose as this individual soul, and to want to merge back with the Lord, this is ultimately this is against your nature. This is not allowing, it's forfeiting your own form, your own eternal nature and position. But he gives facility, there's paths to do it. Therefore the impersonalists again fall down and get material forms, which are all false to the spirit soul. So it's described what happens when one reaches this type of liberation or moksha, or the what is it called? It's a type of liberation, not salokya, maybe samipya. But anyway, whenever you get this type of liberation, what ends up happening is the soul is not satisfied in that position of its merging status. And naturally, it wants to break free again. And then it comes back down to the material world. Actually, in my astrology, it said I did this. That I achieved a certain level of impersonal achievement, but then eventually had to come back. Apparently, that's what my astrology says, at least. And I had to come back and, get something else right. So here I am. Take it with a grain of salt, obviously. But a spiritual form like the Lord's, either two-handed or four-handed, is attained by the devotees of the Lord either in the Vaikunthas or in the Goloka planet, according to the original nature of the soul. This form, which is 100% or 100% spiritual, is the Swarup of the living being, and all the living beings who participated on the battlefield of Kurukshetra on both sides attain their Swarup as confirmed by Bhishmadev. So that's actually what mercy. So yes, even Duryodhan and all of them, how much more fortunate they are than us. By just being present with the Lord, even in the act of fighting with him, they got to attain their real form. So Lord Sri Krishna was not merciful only to the Pandavas. He was also merciful to the other parties because all of them attained the same result. Bhishmadev wanted the same facility also, and that was his prayer to the Lord. Although his position as an associate of the Lord is assured in all circumstances. The conclusion is that whoever dies looking on the personality of Godhead within or without attains the Swarup, which is the highest perfection of life. And actually, if you get into it, and actually Nectar of Devotion, I don't know if you're familiar with this text, Michael's reading it. Prabhupada found it very important. The Goswamis found it very important. This actually goes into more detail on what one's Swarup could be. And ultimately, our lineage is giving us Swarup, which is would be very foreign to what you might think it might be. But it's there. Anyway, I'll be a little cryptic. But yes, I thank you for joining for Bhagavatam. Craig and Michael, have a great day. Hare Krishna. We'll end here. We're going to try and make this a new schedule. If Michael offers early enough, we can start and end Bhagavatam class early. So.
I just wanted to say one thing.
Yes, please.
You were brought up like I was initially a Christian.
Yeah.
Weren't you relieved to know that God isn't just some old guy sitting in heaven making judgment on everything? That he's actually, the pastimes just are so exciting. That he's a personality that's involved in so many things.
Yes, it's so much more pleasing. So.
I was always, when I first got into Krishna consciousness, that was something I was
very attracted to.
about.
Yeah. No, it's I don't know how you couldn't be. So thank you for sharing. Yeah, actually it's exciting. The Lord is exciting, and learning more about the Lord is exciting if we just kind of can get out of our way. Again, I wish you guys, remember how yesterday, we were saying that the Lord lifted Arjuna out of ignorance, and we diagnosed ignorance as all of our problems. We're suffering. All of your sufferings are due to levels of ignorance that you haven't penetrated through yet. So, take time every day. I mean, yes, you have basic maintenance duty. And if you don't do your maintenance duty, then you'll have no time to lift yourself out of ignorance. But take time every day to let the Lord lift you out of ignorance. And that's in the Bhagavad Gita. That's the point of it. So if you're not doing that, please do it. I mean, it's in your best interest. It's in everyone's best interest to take time and let yourself be lifted out of ignorance. And we chant that verse, Shrinvatam Swakatha Krishna, right? So what is the thing that does it? Develop the urge to hear his messages. That includes reading his messages. It's not like, all right, I got to wait for this guy to come up and speak his message. No, I'm just reading it, and I'm just telling you what I'm saying. I'm telling you what he's saying. So you read the message yourself as well. And yes, also here, because there might be a unique realization you wouldn't get on your own reading, but read yourself, and the Lord will also act from within you. This is very powerful. Anyhow, Hare Krishna. Have a great day.
Haribol.
Haribol. See you all soon.